and welcome. I guess I should say I'm Kirsten Nottleson since this will be recorded and held somewhere in our hub. And today I want to talk a little bit, or we're going to talk a little bit about um, that thing that plagues us so often, that sort of self-doubt that I think, as parents, as people in the world, and specifically us as instructors, when our children are not in one way or another sort of fitting the mold that we imagined or fitting the mold that our society imagined, um, or maybe we're the ones that are feeling like, fit the mold that we quote unquote should as parents or should as hand in hand instructors. Sort of that around, we're not feeling like up to snuff or up to par, and what are we doing teaching when we're having these struggles and we're having these challenges. So that's our topic today. And welcome. Would you guys like to just say who you are and where you're calling in from? I mean, I know, but it'd be nice to hear from others.
I'll talk because I'm unmuted. I'm Brooke, and I am calling in from Mountain View, California, in the Bay Area, close to San Francisco.
And I'm Kim Green, and I'm from Washington State.
Perfect. And Molly, or I just called you Molly. Emily, you want to chime in? That's an old flashback right there.
I usually get Amy. That's my alternate name. Emily Murray from Yarmouth, Maine. Is that what we're saying? Name and where we're from?
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so
hi, I'm Heidi.
Oh, great. Hi, Heidi.
Hi. Sorry, I'm like in my car, so I'm kind of random, but I'm happy to be here.
Okay, great. I'm happy you're here too. And it looks like Laura's here. Laura Zane's here too, but also muted and camera off, so we don't know what's up, but we're glad you're here, Laura. Good. Okay. Did you want to say something, Laura? You just came unmuted.
London in the UK, and I'm attempting to do bedtime with my children while also being on this call. So, we'll see how that goes.
Nice. Great. And I think Lauren Fine just came in. Hi, Lauren. Yes, great.
Hey, hi.
We just said who we are and where we're calling in from.
Okay. I'm Lauren. I'm calling in from West Orange, New Jersey.
I keep forgetting you're over there.
It's me too. So weird.
So I want to get started. I have heard from so many people. Some months back, I posted something about having self-doubt and how it impacts my sort of ability to be present, the ability to have confidence in myself, and it takes up a lot of my energy when I'm trying to prepare for something or teach a class or come up with an idea. And so many people replied back and said, me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. And also that thing of like, wow, you have that, like how we don't even realize how many of us are sort of like stuck with that. And it is really a burden. Something that complicates things and takes up a lot of our energy. And so it's really been something I've been working on a lot lately myself. Like I've taken it on as an emotional project, probably for about 6 months or so at this point. And I'm seeing tons of progress. And the further I dig, the more I realize there is down under there. It's been a very worthy project. And as I said, a minute ago, today we're going to focus on kind of how there's a lot to be said about it, but I impacts us as instructors. And I think what I want to do is first focus on some of like where that comes from, what we can work on it, kind of unearth it a little bit. And then the second part I want to focus on is like, okay, so what do we do with that as instructors? We're trying to demystify the myth of perfectionism as parents, that it's anywhere close to possible or even desirable for us to be shooting for perfection. Like, is that actually helpful, or is it actually harming us as parents? And in a way, it sort of keeps the impact of parents' oppression in place when that's what we're, subconsciously shooting for. So first, I just want to say we all, every single parent on the face of the earth. I don't know. How many parents do you think there are on the face of the earth? 4 million, 5 million, billion, excuse me. I mean, like a huge part of the population of the planet are parents. And every single one of those billions and billions of people have had really off track days. They're not favorite moments. They're not favorite days where we just haven't felt our best, where we've doubted ourselves, where we've said and done things we've regretted, where we've tried something and it hasn't gone well. And the same is true for our children, where they have had off track days, off track weeks. And just that is part of being a human being. We are not born it's like my ruler is not going to make any mistakes because it's an inanimate object. It's built this way. It's going to stay this way. It's always going to have the same exact measurements. It is what it is. This person, these people on this call, all of you out there, like this, you are a very complex organism. Like there's so much going on with you in any given moment or second. So there is literally thousands of opportunities in the day for things to go awry. And because of the way our brains are wired to sort of like hunt out mistakes and problems so that we can fix them, like we've evolved that way to keep our species alive, we tend to really magnify and notice the mistakes or the problems or the issues. And can you just imagine if we somehow or another, like even for like a minute, could magically flip that skill of like magnifying what we do well? Like there would be so much of it. Like in this day, all the things that have gone well already, like you're on this phone call, you all have clothes on, you got dressed today, some of you are eating food, like you ate food, your children, nobody came in and reported that they left their child at the bus stop and forgot them. Like there's so many things you did well today, but we are not typically going around noticing them. We tend to really like magnify the challenges. And I do want to say that there's a kind of a little bit of a way to look at that you can be like, wow, good on me. Like, what a great evolved problem solving brain I have. Like, I really notice when things are hard. And when I notice things are hard, then I can do something about it. So you could even kind of like give yourself a break that you're even noticing all those challenges. That's a great start. Like, look at that. I'm a good problem solver, noticer. So, so we have had lots of these times, and sometimes these challenges have been, this week. Sometimes these challenges have gone on for weeks at a time, and sometimes these challenges have gone on for, months or even years. And it could be something with your child, maybe there's a behavior Maybe there's something that's sticky for them. Maybe it's something that you feel is off in your relationship with your child. Um, I mean, I certainly have had the challenge of wondering just broadly what is wrong with my connection with my child. Like that's something I've had to work on for years. What is wrong with me that I don't connect properly? So some of the challenges we have are broad, some are specific, some we don't even notice yet. They feel like the wallpaper, like it's just that's the way it's going to be because it's something that we've brought with us from a very early age and kind of is persistently there. So I guess I'm saying that to say that we all have these places where we feel stuck, where we feel it's not just right or it doesn't look like ever what's on social media or doesn't look like what it, what we perceive all the families around us looking like. It doesn't, there's something that feels off. And because I think that there's a few reasons why it gets hard for us to look at those things. And largely because we live in a society that is based a lot um, guilt has been used a lot to look at that stuff. It makes it hard to be. And I also think about how, am I choppy?
Yeah, you're getting choppy.
Okay, let me see if I can do.
It started when you said we live in a society that, and then you dropped out for a second.
Let me see if I'm going to try my hotspot and see if that works. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, keep letting me know. So this is a great example of like imperfection and things not happen in our lives and in our children's lives. And part of what makes it difficult is that we live in a society that is largely run by competition, comparison, guilt, shame. There's also part of this sort of oppressive society is fueled also, the oppression is fueled by like classism and racism and sexism. Like those are forces that we just live in every day and we don't even notice. Sometimes we notice how heavy those are on us and how
We're kind of losing you,
tighten
Kirsten.
that grip or that vice of like this is how things should look. And
Kirsten, do you got a
also
little
think about
kind of
how
slow glitchy there?
okay,
Do you want to
still
try?
slow
Oh, you did
and
turn your
glitchy.
video off. Gotcha.
Should I take my camera? I'm going to do that now. So this is going to be weird. I'm just going to be talking to you. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. Yep.
Okay, we'll just try this. So I just think about how, when babies are trying things out and they are just starting to learn how to walk, and they get up and then they fall down, and everybody is so happy. They're cheering, yay, yay, yay. Can you imagine if like that's how we lived our life all the time when we were trying things out? But that's typically not how it looks. So some of the things that tend to get in the way of us remembering that the mess that we're experiencing, the quote unquote mess that we're experiencing, are okay, is that one, we have a sense of like we fear how things are going to turn out. Is this going to actually be okay? What is this going to result in? I talked a little bit about parent suppression, how very often parents are blamed, like we carry the weight of feeling like we need to do things a certain way so that our family can thrive, and so that we don't feel like we're being blamed for the way that things are in our society. We also, I think, can sometimes forget that our children are their own person, that they're going to learn in their own way, they're going to have their own ideas, they're going to have their own beliefs, and we want that for them. But sometimes we forget, and we start to think of them as an extension of our own selves, and that that we should be passing on our beliefs or our values, when in fact they really are their own person, and they get to have their own thoughts and beliefs and values. When we get sort of stuck in that, not only is it for they're not going to really feel fully themselves, but it's tricky for us because we're not as relaxed, and we're not kind of free they are. It might be sort of helpful to think, rather than being hard or in a situation, we could be thinking, I wonder what my child is going to learn in this experience.
Kirsten, we're
Sounds like I'm
still losing you. I wonder if do you want to try like joining from the app on your phone instead of regular computer?
Okay. Let me see what's going on. Is it still glitchy right now?
Not at the moment.
Okay. We'll just try it a little bit longer because my phone is also giving me a hard time. So let's just try this. I switched back to my regular internet instead of the hotspot, and let's see if this goes okay. So another thing about where I think it gets tricky to show the real deal of what's happening is thinking about how were mistakes received when you were growing up, when you were struggling. How did people perceive that? What was said about that? What were you able to show in your family? In your family, was there a way you were supposed to act at home and a way you were supposed to act outside? Did you ever see your family sharing their struggles with other families? What was that like? Could your family be real with other families? So I think those are some really good questions to bring to listening time yourself. And then uh, also just thinking about spending some listening time thinking about what in particular is hard for you to show outwardly. What is hard about it? And consider bringing somebody in. Maybe it's another hand-in-hand instructor. And even if you're not ready to say what's really hard, you can get some listening time on, I'm thinking about telling you about this thing that happens at my house, and just have like a light tone to just even to think about sharing it, the real deal of how it is inside your home, inside your family, inside your mind. Um, Another listening time idea is like, who was it that you remember being able to be real with when you were young? Was there somebody? Um, was there somebody that you remember being very real with you? And what did that feel like when they really showed themselves or really showed their struggles? Um, how did that feel? How did it land on you? What did you feel closer to that person or farther away? So just getting some time to notice your thoughts, your feelings about thinking about showing yourself and where it gets hard. And then another thing to remember is that when we are working on an emotional project, either with ourselves or our children, that there are going to be are falling by the wayside. We have this idea of we're identifying a key issue, and I think sometimes we forget to talk about that in hand, but it's like what you do is you just spend some time noticing if there was one issue that I could really address and just focus on that, what would it be? And what that means is that other things are going to not get your attention for the time being. So maybe your child has like food things that you want to look at, but you really can't get out the door to get to school in the morning. So every time you make a little progress on that, you switch over to like, oh my gosh, I got to make sure I got to get a good breakfast in. And then you're focusing on food again. And then when that happens, then the getting to school on time falls, but doesn't happen. So you keep flip flopping back and forth, and it starts to feel like you're quote unquote not making any progress at all. So the idea of identifying a key issue is you pick an issue and you tackle it. It's like an emotional project. You tackle that until you really feel solid under that. So in the meantime, there might be this other stuff that looks really crazy and messy and all over the place. And you get to give yourself permission to like let that be as it is. And as you identify that key issue, you might get to note it, like you get to work on it in listening time. You get to think about how you wish it looked and how you wish it was. Where does it get hard? And then you also get to think about how you can bring other people into it to help you, whether that's another hand-in-hand instructor, whether that's outside help. And I encourage you to kind of think outside the box. I do remember that I was noticing I was having tons of feelings about my son entering like the adolescent year. 14, 15 in particular started getting hard. And I could tell that there was a huge emotional project for me because of my adolescent years, and that it was interfering with me being able to like see my son for who he was. And I started feeling like embarrassed and, oh my gosh, how have I failed? And, I did all these hand in hand tools for all these years, and now he's doing XYZ. And I could see it was so charged and so, and I like a failure, and I didn't know if I could be teaching hand in hand, all the things that some of you came to the call for, that feeling of like not enough, failing. And one of the things that I ended up deciding in my listening time is that I wanted to get a better perspective on teens today. And so I thought about, who do I know that has a better perspective? And I was like, oh, somebody who's a lot closer in age. That's one thing I could do. So I ended up having lunch with, I happened to have a partner who I used to teach a summer camp with, who was, I don't know, 20, young 20s at that point. He has a much better perspective on what's really happening with teenagers probably than I do. Like, he's been there. He's been a teenager, 5 years ago. And so I just trusted that I could trust him. And I just said, tell me what to expect here. And I want to know about sex, and I want to know about drugs, and I want to know about video games, and like, there's all these things I'm terrified of. What should I do? And it was great to just get his relaxed thoughts. Like, I just kind of shut up and listened to him. And I didn't get any listening time with him. I listened to him about his thoughts and how he got through the teen years himself and what was hard. And so it just was an example of like an outside source to help me, that we don't have to, there's no reason we should be figuring this out all by ourselves. It's not rational for us to be figuring it out all by ourselves. So those are some ideas of like how you can work on your own sort of feelings about where it gets hard to show yourself, where you get scared of letting people know there's a true struggle happening. Trust. You have a little bit of solid ground underneath you without having all the problems solved. So it's like working on the feelings and also taking some action, and also making decisions. So that part about making a decision of like, this is what I'm going to tackle right now, and the rest is going to look messy. And there's a lot of power in making that decision. Okay, so I thought what we could do here is to do breakout rooms and just do like 3 minutes each, 4 minutes each. Let's do 3 minutes each. And Emily, can you set up breakout rooms? Or do I need to do that?
Yep, I can. Let's see. I wonder, I know Laura's doing bedtime, so that I'll try to leave you out. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we might have one group of 3, or actually, I'm not really in a listening time spot, so maybe I'll leave myself out too. So if anything goes,
if you want to leave me out and it'll make it even, you can do that.
I think with you it stays even. Give me 1 sec while I.
Yeah, we got you, Laura. She's saying she can't talk right now.
Sorry, I can't talk right now either. It's Heidi.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm gonna go 2 by 2, and then Kirsten and I will be the.
So what you can work on in your listening time, and I would say do 3 minutes each, is what did you notice about showing mistakes when you were young? How did your family show struggle or not? If you could have shown struggle, what would you have liked somebody to know? Outside of your family, somebody that could think well about your family, what would you have liked them to know? And or was there somebody that you remember being real with you, and how did that land on you? What was that like when somebody really showed you? Does anybody have any questions while she's setting it up? Go ahead.
Safa, if you want to be in a room, I don't know if you're in a place where you can turn video or sound on. If you want to be in a room, send up a signal. I'll put you in there. Otherwise, I'll assume.
Yes, I would love to.
Oh, wonderful. Yay.
Yeah,
All right.
So much listening time.
I think that is everybody. So I'm going to open all the rooms and we'll hope they shuffle up well.
Do you want to put pause?
Oh yeah, good call. Again.
Okay, great. Thanks, Emily. So, okay, so there's a piece about working on our own feelings, about showing ourselves and being vulnerable. And then there's this piece about being an instructor. And as we can notice how hard it might be to show things, I think of myself as a relatively open book, and yet there are places where I can't imagine telling anybody that, or I can't imagine showing anybody that, or oh, that would be, oh, I could say that to these people, but not these people, or there's a lot of that that's in there. And I mean, some of that is having good discernment about where to show certain things. Like, it's not like we need to be wide open to the entire world, but it certainly begs lots of good listening time to just sort of notice, where does it get hard? Where do we feel we need to hide? Where do we feel safer? What has allowed us to feel safer? All of those questions, like, I encourage you to spend some time exploring that. And then there's a piece about, how do we teach and how do we decide what we want to work on? And how do we dispel this myth that there's no such thing as perfectionism or perfection as a parent? And how do we show that we are really in there with our parents that we're with in our classes? And so I'm just going to say a little bit about how I think you decide, what do I work on in my group, in my class? And I think that just the same way that you would plan your class, I plan what topics I'm going to cover in my class. I think it's really smart to think ahead about what material you're going to work on. So you're not going to plan the script of what you're going to work on your listening turn, but you could plan what topic you're going to work on. And I think that one of the great things, like Ravid and I are planning, we're doing a tween class, and ahead of time we decide which anecdotes we're going to share. And it's been so helpful to kind of think out loud with her about what does make sense and what doesn't make sense. And similarly to the way that there's sort of a balancing act, we're trying to find a balance. We want to be real and vulnerable enough, but we also don't want to scare people away. You don't share your gnarliest, most sweatiest, longest thrashing, scratches on your arm, stay listening turn with your child in your very first starter class, because you will have parents who, you have to remember that parents are living in the society that we've described, which is very, rigid about feelings. It doesn't understand the healing that we propose here. It's like they're living in that society. And so we have to create safety in our class. And part of that is by having accessible material. It's almost like I was thinking about it almost like the big tent idea. Like, we want people to feel included. We want people to feel not terrified of what we're working on. And that doesn't mean that what you're working on is unacceptable. It just has to be digestible to folks. And so I think that when we get good listening time on whatever it is, on the parts of where it gets hard to show ourselves, I think we become more and more, have better and better judgment about what it is that we share. And we can think about the people in our class. And I think that that part of what you can work on is what you're trying out And even when it falls on its quote unquote falls on its face, it's like, think about that baby that gets up and falls down. Every single time they get up and fall down, they are learning something new in their brain. Their brain is adjusting, their brain is adapting, they're figuring things out. So every time you try something and it seems like, wow, that was a huge misfire, you're still figuring things out, including the way that you have parented in the past. That's a big one for parents, where you go 2 or 3 years down the road, you go, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? I didn't know. I was trying something. And I think that there's big hurt sometimes there. There's big pain for us as parents. And I think it's really good to be able to share that and to know, just like a baby, when I fell down, my brain was learning something new there. I was learning something new there. I was learning something new about myself. I was learning something new about my child. I was learning something about the way things work and what's helpful and what's not helpful. Great, I learned something. I just watched a great TED Talk from that Ravid passed me that was on rupture and repair. And this woman was saying that every single parent, every relationship we have with our children, there's going to be rupture. There's going to be rupture in our relationships with other people, not just our children. Rupture happens. And what we really want to get good at is repair. And so she has this thing where she says, every time something like that happens, she regularly says to herself, oh my gosh, I'm going to get so good at repair. Like, I love that perspective. Like, that's what I'm doing here. I'm getting really, really good at repair. So thinking about that way, and maybe there's something that you can tell yourself about, like, I'm really getting good at sorting things out. I'm getting better at noticing when I'm stubbing my toe. I'm getting, so if you feel like I don't really want to work on what's actually happening with my child in my class, but you can work on the feelings that you have that are coming up about it. You can work on the process that you have that you are how you're working on it. You can tell them some of the things that you've tried. You can work on the feelings of feeling really stuck. You can work on the feelings of feeling powerless. Those are all things that, are real, and they enable you to be vulnerable and real with the parents. And if there's something you feel like this is just a little bit too much, I don't want to share the details of the actual scenario or the actual emotional project, I can talk about the process of it for me. And I think something I just wanted to mention as far as being able to decide, what do I work on, what do I not work on? I was just reminded the other day about a parent who is really new to this process, and we broke into support groups, and one person had their listening time, and then this other parent was like, it was their turn, and they were like, aren't we going to do something? Like, she was feeling really urgent about this parent who just shared their struggles. And that was a great moment there was like a teachable moment there about, like, this is why we're doing listening partnership, and this is why we do it, and the reason, the way that we do it. But also, it's a good thing to remember that your people might feel like they need to take care of you, and yes, that's something they can work on. But if it's a new parent, really new, it's just something good to remember. So it sounds like a balancing act, right? How much do I share? When do I share? What do I share? I think it gets easier the more you work on, like, have your own support outside of your group. Like, that's not going to be the only place you're working on this emotional project with your young person. And let's see, what else did I want to say about that? I think I want to leave whatever, 1 or 2 minutes for question. Sorry for all the glitching today. Who's got questions?
I don't really have a question, but I just want to offer my appreciation because this topic is so front and center for me right now. And I actually brought it to my community of practice this past Monday. I said, I can't make the call. It turned out I could make the call. Can we just talk about this? And everyone in the community of practice wanted to talk about it too. So it's such a key topic. And I've been taking lots of notes. I have a starter class starting on Wednesday, and I'm just so grateful that this has been very, very helpful, Kirsten, and everybody.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I think there's a question from Lara. She says, what about when you're out with friends who know you teach parenting, quote unquote, and your kids are not all shiny? I was thinking about this example of how so many times I've told parents, when your child is having the meltdown in the supermarket, your toddler is having the huge meltdown. And what makes it so much harder to listen to them is because you're worried about what everybody else is thinking. I love being able, like what I present to parents is say, what if everybody else is thinking, wow, I wonder how this person's going to handle it because I've been there too. And sometimes it's hard to reach for that perspective, but that's what I'm thinking, Laura, when you say that is like, just the way that it's like your child is not going to be shiny all the time, like, and how are you in that? And you are an amazing example of like how you can handle that, including when you lose it. We're trying to break down that myth of how things are quote unquote supposed to look. And, I think it would like the fact that you teach parenting and your kids are also having a not so shiny day is great for them to see, Laura. It is. And it's really hard for us to realize that. It's really hard to just let that soak in. The fact that they see your children being not shiny is fantastic. Wow, what if we could believe that and feel that? Yeah.
Sometimes use it as like it's part of my beginning of my classes when I tell them, you would think I've been doing this for I was teaching things like this before I even had kids. And so it's been like 20 years. And I tell them, you would think by now I would be, if anyone could be a perfect parent, like I've put in the time thinking about it, but it's that disconnect. Like it's normal to have feelings. It's normal to have bad days. It's normal to have yucky chemistry with your child on one day. And so I tell them as a way to help them think of themselves as it's okay to flop at this. It's okay to be imperfect, because they're like, oh, well, if my teacher still messes up, then surely it's okay for me to do that too. And they always really appreciate that shifting of standards.
I love the way you said that. Thank you. Well, I am mindful of time and I'd love to just hear a takeaway or appreciation or something you figured out about yourself here, or any way you want to say.
I actually have to run because I was supposed to get on a listening partner call at 2. So I'm going to bring this topic and just say thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Brooke. Great to see
Bye.
you.
Yep.
Hey,
I
this is
just
Heidi.
really-
Can you? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I don't even know who was trying to go.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, echoing what Emily was saying in the first starter class, it's in my list of things to mention. It's like, hey, I'm not a perfect parent. My kid is not a perfect kid. I never will be. He never will be. You never will be. Like this. That's not what we're going for here. That's not the point of all this. Like this is about building relationships. And so it's funny because I do make a big show when I'm working with people about how I'm not perfect and my kid isn't perfect. But when things don't go well for my kid, I come up against that feeling of like, wait, he's not perfect.
Mhm.
And so it was been helpful for me recently to spend some listening time going like, wait, I think I did want a perfect kid. And just confessing that I'm lying when I say I don't want to be perfect and I don't want my kid to be perfect. And just deal and like anyway, and bringing and just looking at what feelings come up around that, because that has been a good a good listening moment for me.
That's great. I love that. I did want a perfect kid. Who am I kidding? Yeah. Wow. hmm
I think for me, this is like always in the back of my mind. Like I think almost all the time, like whether I'm teaching or I'm just like, parenting in public, like I'm always thinking about it and I would like it to be like less loud. And I think probably the way for it to be less loud is to like work on this stuff. And I've never really paid particular attention to it from this perspective. So like, I just really appreciate the invitation and all the really good nuggets that were sprinkled along the way.
You bet. Thank you.
I liked the reminder about the oh shoot, now I can't remember the phrase. So not the emotional project, but what's the phrase, the topic of focus or something?
Oh, key issue.
Key issue. The reminder of if we do have a key issue with our child, then other things are gonna go by the wayside, and like that permission that that's okay, and that might look messy to others, but like we can be confident that like we are honing in on, like connection and like working in that particular thing. And so just for myself, like instead of feeling like I have to have all this stuff all together with my kid, it's like, yeah, there's going to be things that like I'm not focusing on right now that don't look like, I don't know. Anyway, so that that perspective I'll be taking away. And I like how you said too, of thinking outside of the box and getting like help with those things, that I just feel like encouraged, and like that kind of gave me some like freedom to not feel like everything has to be under control all the time and stuff like that. So thank you.
Great. All right. Should we wrap? Is there anybody that's not on screen that needs to jump in, or should we wrap? I think I don't want to keep people too long. So. Okay, everybody. Thank you for your patience and your tolerance. I'm so sorry about and it was perfect though, right? It was perfect. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
So helpful.
Thank you, Kirsten. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.